Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. Thank you again for joining us. Before we give you some little insight into our guest of the week this week on the podcast, we want to give another shout out to our recent brand partnership at fightsatw.com, where you can get your wrestling news, your pro boxing news, and everything in between with that at fightsatw.com. Go check them out. They're great. They're ran by their founder, Abraham Gonzalez. I'm sure you've seen his stuff. He's been all over the boxing, writing, and media space. So go check them out. They're awesome. And our guest this week, you listeners, boxing fans, and everybody are definitely going to know who he is. He's been on the show quite a few times already over the last few years. You probably know him mostly from his time at Golden Boy Promotions, where he was a vice president for, I believe, over 15 years, between 15 and 20 years, he was there. So he was involved in some of the biggest boxing events in the sport throughout the last 15 to 20 years as being a part of Golden Boy Promotions. He is now the current president of Sheer Sports Management, where he has been for almost 2 years, as he mentioned. He goes into that during his interview. He goes into some recent health scares that he had. He had a heart attack just in 2023, I believe. He goes into that. He details that whole situation, what he was feeling, how his wife was feeling, his family and all that. Some other battles that he's had medically, and a car accident he had when he was a child, or when he was younger, excuse me. And then he had a battle with cancer as well. So he goes into some very personal details in regards to his battles like that. And also another story that he mentioned when he was I believe he was in high school. He was either junior high or high school, that he's never revealed. So he reveals that story on our podcast here on the Last Round Boxing Podcast. He talks about how he became president of Sheer Sports Management. He talks about if he's had any contact with people at Golden Boy Promotions since his departure, what he thinks about any potential contact, if he's ready for it or not. He goes into that. That was very interesting, and we appreciate the candid answers, information that he gave us here on the show. And then obviously he talks about Gervonta Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach, which is on March 1st on Prime Video pay-per-view and ppv.com. Robert Diaz is on Team Roach. He's an advisor for Lamont Roach, so he's definitely doesn't shy away from picking which side he's on. So he's definitely on Team Lamont Roach. So we break down that fight. He talks about how Gervonta Tank Davis and Lamont Roach came to be, the potential the offers that were given to Lamont Roach in regards to that fight and why he accepted it. So there's a lot of stuff that we dive into in this hour and 15-minute podcast. So we appreciate you guys listening to whether this is your first episode listening to the Last Round Boxing Podcast, or this is I believe this is our 343rd episode. Whether you've been here for the whole ride or this is your first time on the ride, we definitely appreciate your time listening to our show here. So for our guest of the week here on the Last Round Boxing Podcast, this is Robert Diaz.
And now it's time for the Last Round Interview of the Week.
President of Sheer Sports and former vice president at Golden Boy Promotions joins me this week on the Last Round Boxing Podcast. Thank you for rejoining us again, Robert.
No, thank you, Danny. I appreciate it. I'm excited and hope we have a good one.
Absolutely. So I wanted to start. You did an interview with one of our colleagues. He's our brand partner. He runs the site fightsatw.com, Abraham Gonzalez, earlier this week. And And you mentioned you were talking about some struggles that you've experienced over your life, medically and all that. You just had a heart attack, a widowmaker in 2023. How are you feeling, man? I know you talked about it on his show, but like for our listeners, can you kind of dive into what happened in 2023 and how you're feeling today?
Well, I'm blessed because obviously that came out of nowhere. I mean, and you hear it when you see the doctors and you have the physicals and hey, watch what you eat and your cholesterol's high. But honestly, Danny, you feel invincible, especially maybe 10 years ago. I never even gave thought about even thinking about it. But you're always busy, work, travel, and it's not an excuse, but your diet is crazy. There's no times, so as soon as it happened, it opened up my eyes and it was like, holy crap. And it didn't seem at the moment. I knew I was uncomfortable and something wasn't right. It was an early morning. One day I'm in the shower and I'm like, something's not right. I didn't feel what we hear that, like where you bend over and there's a sharp pain or the arm gets numb. No, I felt pressure on the chest, not on the heart. I couldn't even say, it was in the heart. I just felt pressure, like somebody was pushing. So I come out and it's like, I tell my wife, take me to the emergency. What's wrong? I don't know. I go back in the room to change, and I almost get back in bed. I say, you know what? I don't want to go to the hospital, spend 3-4 hours waiting room, and then they tell you, check with your doctor next week because nothing wrong. Okay. And then you get a fat bill. So I'm like, I'll just sleep it off, which would have been a huge mistake. Something told me get dressed and go. Got there, and sure enough, I went to urgent care to the hospital. The hospital's already waiting, 4 doctors outside. That's when I said something's wrong because the paramedics weren't telling me anything. It was just boom, ambulance took me from urgent care to the hospital, and it's because they hooked me up at urgent care, and I guess they saw I was having a heart attack. But nobody told me nothing until I got to the doctor, and the doctor says, I need you to sign. But when I saw 4 or 5 doctors waiting outside to take me in, I knew something was wrong. It wasn't like go in the waiting room, fill out, let me have your insurance card. So fast forward, I'm in my room after they did the procedure. They put in a couple stents, and the doctor comes in and says, "How you feeling?" And outside of that 1 hour of pressure, I was feeling amazing the day before, and I was feeling fine 2 hours later. I'm in a room already, not even a ICU or anything, just your regular room. And I said, I feel fine. He goes, during this procedure, when they had me sign for consent, that's where I found out. He says, we need a treat, so I need your consent. I said, well, hold on. My wife should be coming because she had to come behind the ambulance. He goes, there is no time. There is no time. We got to treat you now. You're having a massive heart attack. Cabrón. So when the doctor comes in after the procedure, he says, you had what we call a widowmaker. And you're very fortunate because it's a small percentage that survive. Well, what's that? He goes, that's a massive heart attack. All 3 of your arteries were clogged. And so that's when you start realizing, like, holy crap, I was this close. It could have been. Why? Why didn't it happen? So, a few days later, I'm walking in the mall because he told me, don't go home and sleep and relax. I want you to walk. I want to see how you feel. As crazy as it sounds, Danny, a week later, I'm in Guadalajara for Canelo Ryder. Because I almost flew back home to LA. We were in Miami when it happened. I almost flew back to LA, and I'm like, if I'm at home, my wife works for Canelo, so I said, if she, she has to go take care of her job and her business and the event, and so I'm gonna be here in LA. The mind plays tricks. The mind's very strong, and it's like, nah, I better go get this behind me, and at least I'll be, not thinking about it. And ended up going to Guadalajara. The doctor knew about it. He said, go. If I just don't lift anything heavy and don't do crazy. And so I said, okay. But a week later, I was there in Guadalajara, and it kept your mind busy. But it was a big. I mean, an experience that opened up the eyes to say, there's a reason this happened, and you had another chance. Why? Well, whatever it is, it's not your time. Make sure whatever you're doing, you do a positive so that it keeps you longer, help, and also take care of myself. And that's what I did. I changed a lot of more exercise and better eating and just more conscious of taking care of myself more than before. It was just, hey, you feel invincible. And start realizing that with age, you're not so invincible anymore. So you are human. So it's like, you know what? Slow down. It was a thing of saying slow down.
You mentioned that on the way to the hospital or when they were treating you, that paramedics or the people, at least the urgent care, didn't tell you exactly what was going on. It wasn't until you were getting to the hospital you saw like a group of medical professionals and all that. Would you have preferred that they told you like what was happening? Like, hey, you're having a heart attack. Or do you think? I mean, obviously they probably do it so they don't tell people that information because they don't want to spook them and make it worse, make the blood kind of rush up, for the body and all that. Which I understand that. But would you personally have wanted them to tell you that while you're on the way there?
That's a great question because I'd never thought of it. But now that you're saying it and knowing how I am, personally, I am glad it went how they did it because, yes, if at urgent care, they hooked me up when I came in, they hooked me up to the AKG. And I guess that's where they read, oh, shit, something, it's off the chart. If they tell me right there, sir, you're having a heart attack, we're going to call the paramedics and ambulance, you got to be treated somewhere else. I think I was already anxious to begin with because something wasn't right. But not knowing maybe at that moment, it was good. Because even on the way to the hospital, not knowing what's wrong, I'm getting rushed over. Why are they taking me to the emergency? Why couldn't urgent care take care of it? There was doubts, but I was very conscious and in communication. When we get to the hospital, I'm telling you, the doctor said, you need to sign this consent form so we can treat. And I'm like, well, chill. Basically, like my wife should be walking in any minute to explain everything to her. And then sir, we got no time. And that's where they hit me with the news. We have to treat now. It's like, what's going on? And I'm sure during the time of the transport, maybe they gave me something to calm the heart attack, slow it down, whatever it was. But I think knowing would have added to that stress, added to that anxiety. And then what seemed like hours, but was really seconds, probably would have felt like months, So at this point, never thought about that. Giving it thought, I think how it went was perfect.
So did you have any actual, like, they didn't have to open you up or anything, right? They were able to calm you down without opening you up?
Yeah, so that was what my first reaction was, well, let my wife get here. No, you're having a massive heart attack. We got to treat now. And I'm like, okay, please don't open me up. All I could think of is the pain of breaking the ribs and obviously you go under, but the recuperation. And I'm like, please don't open me up. And thank God the technology, because he said, no, at this particular point, it's not open heart. We're going to go through the groin with stents. We're going to put in stents. And then I said, again, never had this before. I said, okay, put me under. Please put me under. He says, oh, we're going to sedate you, but you got to be awake. And now it makes sense. If you're having a heart attack and they put you under anesthesia, you might not wake up. So here they are. I really didn't feel too much, but there's a big screen, one that you'd want to have for the fights. And I turn around, I kept seeing them going into the heart. And I'm like, oh, man, why did I turn around? Why am I looking? But there's still that curiosity. Every once in a while, you turn around. It's like, oh, I don't want to look. And, but it was quick. I mean, I want to say like within an hour, I was in my room again, like back into a room. I was there. I think it happened on Wednesday. On Saturday morning, the doctor comes in. Actually, Wednesday. So Thursday, he says, I need you to walk and around the floor. And I get up, I walk. It was very painful, but only because of the groin area. And Saturday, he says, okay, you're good to go. It happened so fast that it was almost like, did this really happen? Was it a dream? Was it a nightmare? Was it? But obviously, as it took me a couple of days to walk normal because I was still like limping because of the pain there. But here, Saturday and Sunday, I walked all over Miami because the doctor's orders was I need to see if you're short of breath, if you have any pains, come back Monday. And I was like, Doc, I feel like I've always felt. In fact, weeks before I had been biking in Miami, everything was good. And I was like, where did this come from? You know, it was pretty all of a sudden, it just, you didn't see it coming.
How was your wife? How was she dealing with it? I mean, that's pretty scary, not just for you, but I'm sure it was scary for her.
Well, it was, now we laugh because, you know, when you go to a new city, so I live in Miami and LA. When you go to a new city and we realized, and again, we laughed after, it's like, I know where the best restaurants are. I know where the shopping centers are. I know where the masseuse and the spas are. I know where, you know, what beach to go to now, but never gave it thought. Now, as I guess you get into a different chapter in the book, in the life, the older age, the first thing I got to go find now where I go to a new city is, okay, where's the nearest emergency room just in case, you know? But you never think of that. So when I tell her, let's go to the emergency, we get in the car, and it's almost like we look at each other like, where do we go?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, she's looking, I'm Googling. I remember calling 911, and I said, where's the nearest emergency from where I'm at? And they said, pull aside, we'll send an ambulance. And I said, I can't. Really, at that moment, there was so much anxiety that I'm like, I'm not going to wait here. Who knows how long? And not knowing how long seems like forever. So she said, I just found an urgent care. That's where we got to the urgent care, and then the rest was ambulance.
How long were you?
No, she was very.
How long were you in the like under supervision?
From the moment it happened to the moment they released me. Yeah. It happened on Wednesday morning, and Saturday morning they sent me home. That's when I did all the miles in the mall. He told me, don't go home and rest. I want you to go find a mall indoors and walk as much as you can tolerate, and then come back Monday. Monday I go back. I tell him, I feel great. I feel good. And he says, okay, you're going to have a couple more stents on the other ones, because what they did at the emergency is open one, the main artery. But the other two are blocked, so you're going to have to get them done when you go back to LA or wherever you're going to be treated. And I said, okay. That's where I said, can I get on a flight? I thought I was going to have to drive back to LA.
Yeah.
And because of altitude. And he goes, no, you can do whatever you want, normal, watch what you eat, do some exercise, and don't lift anything heavy. I'm like, okay. So I can go to I can fly, yes. Can I go to altitude? Guadalajara being, he goes, yeah. I said, well, if I'm going to fly back to LA, I might as well fly to Guadalajara and I'll be chill. And next thing you know, I went to the Canelo fight.
Now, did you ask the doctor or the medical team there that, because you had mentioned, you'd also mentioned to Abraham that, you had been working out, you were eating good, like everything was going good. You said you felt great. And then all of a sudden, you have this blockage, a heart attack, but it's the Widowmaker is like a complete blockage. I believe like the left anterior section. Did you ask the medical team, like, hey, how does this happen? I mean, obviously the bodies are just random sometimes, but what was their take on, because you're obviously living like a healthy lifestyle, you're working out, it seems like you're taking care of yourself, and then one day to the next this happens. Did they give you their opinion on that?
So I really didn't ask them, because in the past, my medical doctor, my primary doctor had told me, hey, watch your cholesterol. You got to lower it. I'm going to give you some medication. I've never really been a guy of medication. And I said, no, I'm not going to take this. You know what? I'll do it on my own. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to go vegan. I'm going to exercise. And one day, tomorrow, let's go eat big old steak and this and that. Okay, so when it happened, it was like, all right. It wasn't really a surprise. It was a surprise in the sense that the last month I've been exercising and eating healthy. I had gone to lunch with Bernard at this restaurant that he introduced me to, which is very clean and very, that's his lifestyle. And so I went a couple times. In fact, I rode the bike a few days before, ate there and then rode back. But I had another episode a year later where similar situation where I'm working out. I mean, 5 miles every morning. At night, I'm doing weights. And it was the night before this next thing happened that I come out of the sauna and I tell myself, it's about 10 o'clock at night, and I tell myself, man, I haven't felt this good in ages. I should have done this a long time ago. Come upstairs, shower, turn on the TV, and I'm out. I fall asleep like in 20 minutes. Next morning, I get up for early morning. I had a lot of stuff to do, and I'm showering and brushing my teeth. And I drop the toothbrush, falls out of my hands. I don't drop it. It falls out, and I'm like, that's weird. I sit on the side of the bed, and I call my wife. She's in Miami. I'm in LA. And within seconds of talking to her, like, what happened with my hand? She said, maybe you slept over it and then the it's numb. And I'm like, nah, it's not numb. Something's different. And then my speech. So I'm like, oh, my God. And she's like, what? I said, I'm having a stroke. Now, again, I've never had it, so I don't know how to, but it's obvious. So I jump in the car and I drive. I drove this time to the emergency. And it was weird. To that doctor, to those doctors that took care of me, I said, I don't understand. I've been doing everything right, taking the medication that the cardiologist, how does this happen? I mean, 5 miles every morning, 3 times a week, working out, weights. What happened? Yesterday, I said to myself, I haven't felt this great. What happened? And I said, look, that's great that the last month but you can't change in 1 month what has been taking 30 years to get here. So maybe, and that's when they put in perspective, and I said, okay, you got a point there. Maybe you didn't have it as bad because the last month you have been very healthy and working out and this and that. So I said, okay, because right away, I mean, it was scary. That one was even worse because, you think of a heart attack, what's the worst outcome? That's it, right? When you think of a stroke, and the day I was there admitted for 24 hours and observation and everything, but I said, I need to walk. And they said, are you sure? Can you walk by yourself? I'll show you. And next thing you know, they said, yeah, you can walk on your own. And I'm walking, but I'm looking at the other rooms. That whole floor is patients that have suffered stroke. But I'm looking, and you see, I mean, obviously from everything, you see how bad some patients have it. And it's like, oh my God, because that gets hard. Because if something like that happens and now you're, I think your brain knows what's going on. It's your body that can't function. I think that's even worse because it's like you're trapped inside, and now you're dependent on everybody and your family or it's like that's tough. So that was almost a year after, and it was like, wow, what's going on? So now I try to stay away from health, stay away from good food, don't do exercise because it's happened twice. The 2 times that I've said, okay, I'm going to go into this camp mode type deal, it's happened. It's like, wait a minute, you know what? This is not meant for me. I got to go eat tacos and burritos and the junk, and that's how my body functions. But no, to get in, go down to it, but I feel great now. I've lost about 20 pounds. And that's where I said, a little bit more of paying attention to yourself. We sometimes get caught up in our jobs, in our careers, in everybody else, that we tend to forget about us ourselves. And you can't be any productive or good for others if you're not good to yourself, because obviously you're going to break down. So lesson learned that add and then take one day at a time, because, you know, when we say, oh, I'll do that next week, I'll do that. This was an eye opener that it's never guaranteed. You see, you know, to be honest, if my time was up, okay, I've had an amazing life. I'm grateful. But you see children and you see people that still haven't lived or have done, you know, reached their dreams, not have that chance. So it's like, okay, if you had this chance, it's for a reason. Make it a positive reason, especially for others.
Do you have like a family history of, you know, all these episodes, like, you know, the heart attack episode, and then, you know, the stroke symptoms? Do you have a family history of that?
Yeah, my dad had everything in the book. My dad had it. My dad was diabetic. My dad had 3 open heart surgeries. My dad had cancer. I mean, my dad had everything. But it's funny because he had it at an early age. His first heart attack was probably at 42. He had open heart surgery 3 different times. When I hit 50, I was like, yeah, see, it didn't hit me. So because, you know, as much as people would always say, and doctors, oh, because it's genetic. At the time, I didn't believe in genetic. I believed what it is you eat and you grow up eating what your parents eat. So that's why you have the same things that your parents have. So I said, I'm not going to eat what my dad ate to be a little healthier. And next thing you know, oh, but you still have cholesterol. How could, but I've learned it a little bit more now in the nutrition and stuff like that I'm like, okay, I'm going to get away from certain foods that I grew up eating. The hardest thing for me to give up recently was rice. I love rice, whether it's Chinese rice, Mexican rice, white rice, right. And for years, that was my diet. Oh, I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cut that. But I never cut rice, whether it was fish or rice and tuna, whatever. But now I've cut out the rice because it's starch, which sugar and you know, right. So I've learned to eat a little bit different. It took some adjustments, but I'm feeling it. I'm feeling so much. People, how did you lose so much weight? What are you doing? I just cut out certain foods that, you know, and I'm feeling good right now. I just don't want to say I'm feeling better than ever, because that's the jinx.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and for people who don't know too, like when you were younger, you were in a car accident where you got thrown like 60 feet into the air. I think you had mentioned in a past interview. You know, you experienced cancer, survived that. So, I mean, do you ever just sit there and think like, man, like these episodes I'm trying to stay healthy. I'm trying to just continue life, and they just pop up and pop up.
I do give it a lot of thought, and I'm like, a cousin of mine is like, man, you're like a cat, man. You have so many, and it's like, yeah, but I don't want to keep experiencing them. I mean, just let's slow down. But it's almost like, I'll tell you one that's never been out. I've never said, but I was in junior high, and I'd get in trouble a lot. When I was in school, I'd get in trouble a lot. And I get called in. I get to class. I get called in from the teacher, and it says, you got to go to the principal's office. And I remember, I haven't done anything. At least not yet. I haven't done anything. I get there, and there's police. And I'm like, what the heck? And they said, you know so-and-so? And I said, yeah, but we're not friends. Like, I'm already thinking they're going to try to tie me up to something he did. So we're not friends. On the contrary, we're opposites. No, we understand. What's the problem you have with him? I said, I have no problem. We arrested him today. He's been taken. He went to the same school. He was walking around, not going to class, and we brought him in. Police came in because they had found a gun in his backpack. Now, today, yeah, you hear about guns in schools. Even in our neighborhood back then, you hear guns outside of school, but you never heard of in the school. And when the cops were brought in, when the prince or they found him, took him into the office, found the gun in him, and then they called the cops. The police showed up, and when he's questioned, he said, "Yeah, I came to kill Diaz." Now, we didn't have that kind of beef, but it was just opposites. I get taken from the police right there. They said, "So we don't want you in the school no more." But I didn't do nothing. Nope, you're out of here. So the police take me to the station as well. Parents had to go pick me up. At that time, being young, 15, whatever it is I thought of it as like a stripe, as ignorant as it is and sounds. I'm like, okay, I'm it gives you a stripe that, hey, somebody went and they failed and this and that. But that's why years later, I say, wow, if he would have even crossed me in the hallway, it could have been done and over with, and we never would have gotten to this part, had kids, married, much less the opportunity of working with some of the greatest fighters. So that was the first one that was like really later came on to me and said, damn, you were lucky. You were lucky. And then, yes, I had a car accident. My fault in Tijuana. Driving how I shouldn't have been driving fast, driving stupid. And I drove off the freeway, the road, and went off the road, and it was 60 feet, 20 metros. And they found us. I had two friends in the car with me. I was driving. They found us hours later. Part of the motor had come into the car. They had to cut the roof off to take us out. And yet hours later, I'm in the emergency in Tijuana saying, like, I need my car. I need my keys. I want to get out of here. I didn't know how bad I was. I'd broken both my legs. The right leg severely damaged. They had 7 surgeries. The left leg was in a cast. Not there once I got transferred to San Diego. And that was a huge eye-opener because that took me – first they said I may never walk. They told my mom. But that took me about 10 months to walk again. So that was crazy because bedridden for over a month. Then I had to go through wheelchair, crutches, and eventually therapy, and to learn how to walk. That's as crazy as that sound. I'll never forget that I had to learn how to walk. I had no confidence on putting that next step. And I remember the bars that help you to get the weight off and little by little learn how to walk again. And that was crazy. I mean, with crutches, it was one thing, but learning how to put that foot down and putting weight on the right leg that had been damaged, that was bad. That was really bad. So yeah, I've had some rounds, and but I've been very fortunate because obviously I'm still here, which is the most important thing, and but healthy now.
Absolutely, yeah, and we're all so glad that you're still here, man.
Thank
all
you.
Those battles, like
Thank you.
You mentioned a family member told you that you have like 9 lives like a cat. I think he's right, man. I think he's totally right on that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Transitioning to last year, you accepted the position to become the president of Sheer Sports Management. What I'd like to know in regards to that is, you've been on, you were on here on our show on the last round a couple times already, and especially subsequently your departure from Golden Boy, and then in our interviews, and then in other interviews that you've done, you've mentioned that you've had offers from different organizations, whether it's boxing or what have you. What was it about Sheer Sports that last year you decided, you know what, I'm gonna jump into this? Because I mean, you said in interviews you've had offers. You could have worked with some of the biggest, promoters and fighters and managements and all that. Why Sheer Sports? What made that decision for you to accept last year?
Well, when after 15 years at Golden Boy, when we parted ways, the first couple months were easy because it was like, okay, I deserve a vacation. I'm going to take a couple months off and just, do whatever I want. Travel, fly here, go there, Miami, Mexico. But after you get bored of even at that having fun, it's like, okay, now what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And there was, from small promoters to big promoters, there was opportunities, but I really had to give it some thought. Did I really want to go and not necessarily start over, because I already knew the matchmaking industry, who to call, what to do, how to do, commissions, organizations. But I didn't want to start over in the sense of going back into that routine of being very busy. See, for the listeners out there, some of the best matchmakers are the fans. It's very simple to say, well, that style, this style, they know boxing, they know styles make fights. It's a no-brainer. Why don't they make this fight? What they don't know sometimes is all the hurdles and the obstacles to make that fight. It's a no-brainer to make it. But whether it's a family member, whether it's the trainer, whether it's the manager, it's not time. We got to marinate it. We got to this. It's not as easy as, oh, you know what? You wake up. I mean, trust me, sometimes in my sleep, and then you wake up, bingo, I know what fight. And then but you always had, no, it's not time. The father, the mother, the sister, the brother, the husband, the wife, always somebody had something to say. And at the end of the day, the fighters just give me the date. And, if the money's right, I'll fight. But there's always something. So it was like, do I really want to go through this again? And I'm like, nah. And there was one company that I probably wouldn't have thought too much of it, because it's a company that reminds me of Golden Boy a lot. And it was like, this is a no-brainer to go there. And I still had not had the heart attack. I started thinking, at this age, I got to work smarter, not harder. What I do love is boxing. What I do love is, even on the promotional side, is guiding the young fighter, seeing the development, being part of the fighter, critiquing, also giving them, the advice. I really had the bond with a lot of the fighters. So it was like, I know I want to be more involved with the fighters. Sheer Sports reached out to me, Ken Shear and Lyle Green, the partners, and said, what do you think? And I said, you know what? I knew them from the years at Golden Boy. They had several Golden Boy fighters. I mean, you saw all kinds of different managers, from good ones, bad ones, great ones, everything. And something that always stood out about them is they don't live off boxing, very well off. They love boxing, but they have businesses outside of boxing that have them well. And they were always very fair with their fighters and treated their fighters really good. I mean, every fighter that I knew through them was very happy. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I like the idea of the management. Now I'm going to work directly with the fighters. And they said, we want you to basically, here's the keys. And I said, okay, let's go. And it wasn't actually last year, it was the year before. And so I'm going on 2 years now. It's going on 2 years in a couple more months, but it's been quick. It's been great. It's been developing. Went out there and started signing a bunch of young fighters and bringing to the company. And I think little by little over time, they're going to start getting that recognition. And I love that. I love that because it's very easy to start at the top. But there's only one way, and it's down at times, right? Unless you sustain it. But it's great when you start a company that, okay, and now all of a sudden, little by little, starts getting that recognition. And just knowing that you're a little part of that is fulfilling.
Now, how are you dealing now in that new role in the last 2 years or so with fighters who might have their own, maybe the dad is the manager or somebody close to them, but they still kind of want to work with maybe a company like Sheer Sports? Are you guys open to that, or do you guys want individualized management to take over for them?
I think once a fighter has a manager, whether it's the father or something like that, then it's like they can come And there could be cases where you could sit down and say, okay, however, what's our role then? If you already, it hasn't really happened because the role here is management. If somebody else wants to do it, then by all means. Now, I have had several fighters or teams call me and say, look, I'm not looking for a manager, but will you advise me? It's not a long career. If it's a young fighter, I want to bring them over to Sheer Sports because there's a future of building. If it's a fighter, Jorge Linares called me and said, I want to give it one more shot. And I'm like, for what? He had lost 3 in a row, 1 with Haney and then 2 in Russia. And I'm like, that's the Jorge, man. I've known him since he was 17 and we had a great relationship and I didn't want to see him get hurt. And I said, okay, show me. And he, over a period of like 2 or 3 months, started training his ass off. And I saw the flame back. And I said, okay, let's go. But that was a one-on-one directly with him. And we went to Liverpool, London, and England. And we lost the decision to Jack Cattrall. And that was it. He's training fighters, doing a hell of a job. I'm really happy because he's training. In fact, he introduced me to a fighter he's training that asked me for advice and help. And I said, no problem, man. I like his character. I like his drive. And that's Pitufo Diaz. I'm working with Pitufo Diaz now, advising him. And little by little, calls started coming when the word got out. Oh, you haven't left boxing. No, I never left. I just took some time out. And Ronnie Rios called me after 2 years off. And I told him, nah, Ronnie, that's it, man. Really? He trained 1 full year. And I was hoping that I'd get the call any minute saying, you know what, Robert, that's it. I don't have. He trained 1 full year before I said, all right, Ronnie, I see you are going in that direction. And I don't want you to fall in the wrong hands. I really always had a bond with him. I always really like a family. So it was like, all right, he got a win, got a WBA title, got in the rankings. And next thing you know, we were talking about a world title fight. And we went to Liverpool again. I'm sorry to all the people and all the fans and everybody at Liverpool, but I don't think we're going back anytime soon to Liverpool. 0-2 at Liverpool. But, yeah, he fought a very good, young, strong, tough champion that obviously he's undefeated for a reason. He's champion for a reason, is in Nick Ball. And you know what? I was just happy that we got him there. We got him an opportunity. And unfortunately, it didn't go our way. Pablo Cesar Cano's another example. 2 years out, calls me. I want to give it one more chance. This is a kid I also known since he's 17. And we got a win, got a title. And then from that came a world title eliminator against Giasov, and he came up short. But like those opportunities are one-offs, or people call me and say I already have a manager, or even promoters are calling me and saying, hey, I know this or that. Could you help me with this fighter, get him ranked and this or what route to take? Yeah, sure, no problem. So definitely involved and. Also excited because there's some good things in the future that I think I see where we can develop and Sheer fighters can develop, and hopefully before the end of the year we're talking about having a world champion very soon.
How many approaches or offers, however you want to categorize them, do you think you've had since you've left Golden Boy? Because obviously Sheer Sports, you accepted their offer, you joined their team, but if you had to just kind of rough number off the top of your head, how many people probably approached you?
Promotional wise, it was about 5 different promoters that reached out, of all levels. Some of them, I don't know if they're even still doing shows, but it was like, look, honestly, if there's advice I can give you, or a couple were brand new and it was starting, and it was like, are you sure you want to do this? And there's other people that have reached out as promoters. I want to be a promoter. And I'm like, are you really sure you want to really spend a lot of savings? And it's not as easy as it looks. Don't think because you see it on TV, it's that easy. You're gonna, unless you have this big financial and you could bring sponsors and TV and maybe do management or maybe do training or I try to advise unless they're very stuck on it. But yeah, there's been about 5 or 6 different offers that have come, and others not just in promotional. There's been in, one that I thought to myself, I said, man, this would be great. Is back in the day, if HBO was still around, is the one that HBO and Showtime were doing really good because they had people who were like a matchmaker in sense, approving the fights. That's where I said, you know what? If I work with a network, that could be the spot to say, okay, I approve, I don't approve. This is the fight we want. Knowing what the fan, because as a matchmaker, yes, you want to make a fight a majority so that the chances are of your guy winning. But it's also a fight that you think and hope that the fans enjoy too for their entertainment, because obviously you keep if the fans are happy, the television's happy. If the television's happy, the promoter's happy. That means the fighter's happy. So it trickles down. So I said that would be a spot, just office work, of course, but you're still matching, but you're matching for somebody else that has to go do the matchmaking. So that thought that came to mind, and there was a couple possibilities to go that route, but it takes away really my role in the development of the fighter himself, to be involved more one-on-one. And that's really at this point what I like.
Have you had any, I'm sure you have, because, you have contact with a bunch of different fighters, and your network in boxing is already vast just because of your years of experience. But have you had contact with Golden Boy staff or executives since you've left?
No, not really. It wasn't. It maybe like if I see him at an event or something at the conventions, it's like, hey, how are you? Hey, what's up? It's up, but not. Even though there's a couple of sheer fighters under Golden Boy banner, which is Joel Iriarte, top amateur, and now off to a great start, 6-0, 6 knockouts, and then recently signed Federico Pacheco, Diego Pacheco's younger brother, heavyweight. And they were both with Golden Boy. So hopefully within time, but it's not there. Not yet.
Are you ready for it?
I am. I've been ready. To me, it's, deep down, it was a family for 15 years that, I say it all the time, 14 and a half years were amazing. And still to me, a dream come true. I mean, because of Barrera's, the opportunity of working with Barrera, I meet the people at Golden Boy. Because of the 15 years at Golden Boy, I was able to work with some of the greatest fighters that ever stepped into the ring and had the privilege of knowing them. I mean, I just text Chino Maidana a couple of days ago, hey, ¿cómo estás? God bless you, man. You got to be incredible, because he could have been gone. I mean, head on with a car and a motorcycle, and he texts me back. So Miguel Cotto and I are very close. I mean, there's just boxing, 15 years at Golden Boy, Marco have given me so much more than I ever dreamed of, that it's made relationships and friends for life. I mean, Randy Caballero, I don't see him often, but when we text, it's almost like I haven't seen him or his family. There's that connection with some of these guys and some people that's forever. So I know I'm ready. It's more on when it's the right time. I did say, because a lot of people, you think it was time, should have happened before, should have happened later, that the separate. I said, God's times are perfect. I think 15 years, that chapter was the perfect time to close. Now on to another one. I hope to write a book one day that'll the 15 rounds of matchmaking, or 12 rounds of matchmaking, and have a little bit of my life of how it, from that junior high incident to the last one and everything. But breaking it over towards boxing and separating it. But I think it was perfect timing. I'm very grateful. Again, worked with some of the best people. There was a time at Golden Boy where there was 3 shows in one weekend, 5 shows in 1 month. And it was crazy. It was a machine. How boom, boom, show after show after show, travel here, bam, there. Because remember, there was Golden Boy. I mean, we had HBO, we had Fox, we had Telefutura. At times, we had Televisa in Mexico. We had 1 show every month in Mexico. So it was like we're all over the place. So there was a lot of matching, but at the time, you're just in motion. Just move. And there was a time where, okay, we only had Estrella TV.
Estrella, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like new for them. And it was like, man, now your budget's so much lower and go make best fights possible. But you got $10,000 to do a car. It was tough. I mean, one of the toughest ones, Danny, was it took me 5 fights to make. 5 attempts to make this one fight that I was stuck on making. In fact, by the 3rd time that it falls apart, I said, that's a sign that forget about it. Don't push it anymore. It's not meant to be. Months later or years later, I said, I got to try it again. And I did it. And I did it on Estrella TV. But to go to both fighters, and both knew, and by the characteristics of the fighters, you as a fan and media and everybody knew it was a guaranteed war. But to go to them, and they knew, of course, to go to them and say, this is how much I can pay you, and this is how much I can pay you, because we didn't have the budget. Well, they both accepted the fight. It was the biggest sell of the little Velasco's.
Downtown, yeah.
Velasco, yeah.
LA Fight Club?
Yep, LA Fight Club. They were the main event. But that fight, we had to sell $10 seats in a room that's connected to the Velasco, but you couldn't see. You weren't in the theater. You were like in a little bar separate. So we put a TV, or I think they had a TV, and people paid $10 to watch it on TV there, even though it was in the next room. But I was real proud of that fight. It took 5 times to make before it happened. And it was Jesus Soto Caras against Yoshihiro Kamagai.
And I was there.
You were there? Wow. And I remember
LA Fight Club years were great, man.
They were. You know, when I talked to, I think Ryan was on there. Oscar Duarte came out of there. Oscar Duarte had to drop like 13 pounds in the last couple of days, came in on short notice. I remember when he came out of the ring, I said, Juanito, who do I need to talk to sign you? I said, I'm not signing you just because you won. I'm signing you because you had the cojones and the heart to come out here on your own and fight a kid. He fought a kid from Kelly Pavlik's team who was 3-0 and 3 knockouts. And he came in, I think Duarte came in with 2-0, 1 draw or something like that. And he put a whooping on him. And look, he's on the verge of fighting for a world title now. He's doing really good. But I remember when the fight was over with Soto Caras and Kamagai, all I kept thinking is, man, I don't want to see the decision. They gave it everything. And the last thing I wanted was one of them to lose. Neither of them deserved to lose. And I was happy because they gave it a draw. And because of that, HBO picks up the rematch. And then they go on to have the rematch on an undercard, a co-main event of an HBO. I forget who was the main event, but Kamagai wins the second one, stops Jesus Soto Caras. But I was just happy that now I was able to go back to him and say, you guys, let's do the rematch. But guess what? It's on HBO and I can pay you guys more.
Yeah, I'm sure they like that. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So, those years, obviously you had you guys had a lot of events all over the world, but obviously the Golden Boy is based in Los Angeles, so a lot of events are in the LA area. But there was quite a while those LA Fight Club events. For our listeners who aren't aware of what that was, it was a series that you guys had. I believe it was mostly on Estrella TV, which is a Mexican television channel, and it was in a At night, it turned into like a dance club, the Belasco Theater. At night, it turned into a dance club in downtown Los Angeles. Because there'd be times I remember we'd be at the fight, and we'd have to clear out because an hour later there was people lined up outside.
There's a lot, yeah.
I remember that. I was like, this is nuts, but it was cool. It was a very cool experience. But so you guys had that little series that, like you said, I think JoJo Diaz was coming up on those cards. Ryan Garcia was on a couple of those cards. Chimpa Gonzalez was there. You guys had
Chimpa was, yeah.
Yeah, you guys had all these guys coming up on those cards. Would you say that the Jesus Soto Caras and the Kamagai event, would that be the most memorable moment of that series that you had when you were there?
That was one of them, but there was a 4-round fight. That Ramon, I don't remember his last name, but it wasn't Valadez. Frankie Gomez. You remember Frankie Gomez?
Yeah, I wish he continued, man.
Oh my God, you and me both.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the best fighters that never made it, right? Because he was
Roach
natural.
does that too. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a natural. But Frankie had a little friend very close to him, stable-mate type kid that grew up with him in the amateurs, and he asked if we could put him on. No problem, put him on. And I get this opponent that I swear if you would have seen him, you'd probably think it's Eric Morales' son, because he looked just like Eric Morales, la nariz, thin. And it was a 4-rounder that they gave. I mean, they hit each other. It was like watching a mini version of Barrera and Morales. I mean, at this club show, right? And I think it was a draw. That one was one that I'll never forget in a 4-rounder. Yes, Kamagai and Jesus Soto Caras seemed like the shoes were they were too big for those shoes, because it was a club show. They don't belong here, but we didn't have anything else. And it was a fight that I said I have to make. And then I think Blair Cobbs fought a young kid that I had, Karobian, Ferdinand Karobian. And that was a hell of a fight, bloody fight. Karobian had he brought in a huge crowd. And Karobian, and they were all in the front row, the top seat. And then some bloody fight. Blair wins. I mean, there was some. One that hit me hard was Chimpa. You mentioned Chimpa. Chimpa is knocking people out. Young kid, very personable, good crowd. People were already, he had a good following. And the kid could punch. He fights Romero Duno, young Filipino kid, and comes in and blasts him out, knocked him out. I mean, we went to the hospital for precautionary. I was worried. I was like, what happened? So young, so strong, But the beauty of boxing, you never know. Nothing's ever written, and nobody gave him the memo of, hey, you're the opponent. Duno came in, and it was like, shit, here's a new Manny Pacquiao, because he had that, that pop. We ended up doing, years later, Romero Duno against Ryan, and then it was the total opposite. He caught him with one left hook, and it was over. Duno didn't know what happened. He was like, what the heck? Why is the fight over? But that's boxing. But so many young up-and-coming fighters came out of there. One kid that I'll never forget fought 3 times on those type club shows as the opponent. But the 3rd time he tells me, Danny, he says, Robert, if I win this one, can you sign me? I've already beaten 2 of your Golden Boy guys. Can you sign me if I beat this guy? And I said, you know what? Absolutely. You deserve it. And that was Carlos the Solution Morales, man.
No
Hats
way.
off. The kid went in 3 times as the opponent on the B side. 3 times he won, got signed, obviously went on to have, some good fights, had a very close fight with Ryan Garcia at the Fantasy. And today his son, little Carlos, is one of the top amateurs. And I know everybody's trying to sign him, because that kid's going to be a world champion, man. He's the goods. And then he has Carlos not only as a father, but somebody who's done it and can teach him, look, do it this way, not that way. So, and they got a great, great team.
Yeah, that was a fun series, man. It was some fun years right there at the Belasco. Definitely.
No, you said there was years that fans and media would still ask, when are you guys coming back? When is the series coming back? So that's when you knew, look, sometimes over the weekend, or I think it was during the week. So there's nothing to do. And, that was the perfect setting, setting. So hopefully they could bring that back.
Yeah, those were fun years, man. Yeah, definitely. And there's still a lot of fight. Like I said, Ryan started on there, and Jojo Diaz was started on there pretty much. Like got some pretty decent exposure. So yeah, those are some fun times. Definitely fun times. Let's transition to next Saturday, March 1st on Prime Video pay-per-view and ppv.com. Gervonta Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. So you're on Team Roach. Can you describe are you just kind of, do you have an official role on his team, or are you just kind of like in the shadows, like, hey, I'm on his team when he calls, like we talk about, information or advice, or, do you have an official role on his team, or is it just kind of like you know him so well that you're there?
Yeah, I'm an advisor for him. The father is the manager and trainer, and he's done a hell of a job. We've known each other for all those years, and obviously, when his contract goes over and he doesn't resign and moves on, I get the call and it's like, let's work. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. We had, when he was at Golden Boy, he had a shot at the world title as a mandatory against Jamel Herring. He was very close. But it wasn't controversial. But I know how he learned, how he improved, that the second time around, it wasn't going to get away from him. And it was great because when he fought for the world title again against Garcia, find out after the fight, obviously he wins and makes that dream come true, and he's the world champion. But if he doesn't get the knockdown in the last round, it's a draw. So that would have been devastating. He gets the knockdown. His little brother mentions, like, hey, I throw the hook. He got you. And he throws the hook, drops him, and that's basically sealed it for him to take the whole world title. And that was just amazing because, oh man, it would have been devastating had he not, gone home with the title. It would have been a draw. And as great as that sounds, because it shows you're at that level, it's not the same as going home with the belt. And I was very happy for Lamont. I know how hard he's worked. I know how competitive he is. I know how talented he is, that it's like he deserved it. And I know how hard they've worked, and it's like you want to always see, and it doesn't always work out that way, that there is a reward for those that put in, the time, the effort, the sacrifices. Sometimes there is the stars have to align, and fortunately it aligned. And yeah, we're a week away from not only a fight that I tell people, and of course they're, you're with Team Roach. No, it's not that I'm with Team Roach. It is a real fight because I know Lamont. I know how competitive he is. I know how talented he is. It's just a lot of the world doesn't know it because they haven't seen him or haven't followed his career, or he's been on the undercards. But this is a kid that, early on had that, and he played a trick on me when we first got to meet. We went out to lunch, we're talking, walking back to the Golden Boy office, and he tells me, my next fight, I'm going to have the American flag on one side of my trunks and the Mexican flag on the other side of the trunk. And I turn around and I'm like, oh yeah, why is that? Oh, because I'm half Mexican. Now, he's telling me this. We're still getting to know it. I mean, this is early on. And I'm like, you know what? No wonder you fight like a Mexican. Because if you watch him fight, his inside fighting, he works the body really well. And fuck, his little brother even works the body even more. But I'm like, oh, shit. So I get back. They fly back home. One day I'm talking to PR in the office, and I said, hey, set up Lamont with interviews, do this, do that. And also, FYI, so that you could introduce him also to the Mexican market or media, because he's half Mexican. So I think PR reaches out to him and says, hey, we need to get some information for some interviews and setups and promos and this and that. Where does the half Mexican part come from? From your dad, from your mom? huh? No, I'm not half Mexican. And then they come back to me, Robert, he was messing with, I'm like, oh, you got me, you got me. But he reminds me a little bit of a Shane Mosley. Shane, obviously coming up in Southern California, fought the Mexican style, knew the Mexicans in the area, sparring, fighting, everything, and worked that body really well, was really good inside. And I see that in Lamont from early on. So I know Tank is, look, he's one of the top, pound for pound. He's a little Mike Tyson, Tank and Iron. I mean, he's just in a smaller size, but just like Mike Tyson, I said this a couple of days ago with somebody else. I said, just like Mike Tyson had something in front of him named James Buster Douglas and Evander Holyfield, and I won't go to the others because obviously that was past his prime. When you have somebody in front of you that respects you, but also believes he can win, that's a key part in winning. I mean, believing. I think we've seen it. Look, and this younger generation is starting to shift that way, like we had back in the day when everybody's willing to take risks and fight each other. You're seeing it tomorrow with Virgil, back-to-back tough fights. But that's now these fighters that want to go down and with legacy. Teofimo taking on Lomachenko, Haney going twice to Australia and fighting Lomachenko himself. Ryan taking on Tank. We're starting to see the young fighters taking more risks like they were back in the day when Oscar was fighting, back in the day when Sugar Ray and Hagler and they all fought each other. I think we're going into the right direction. And I got to say, I think that comes from Canelo. Because that young generation that came under Floyd wanted to be like Floyd. They had to be undefeated and they had to take, the business part. It worked for Floyd because Floyd is a generational great fighter, one of the greatest to ever do it. But it wasn't working for these other fighters that didn't have that extra, whether it was outside or what. And when they're not fighting once every 2 years, they get rusted, they get their timings, everything. And then when they finally come back, they lose not to a better fighter, just to a fighter that's better prepared. Then comes the new generation that comes under Canelo, and they still see the same thing, the young generation that's all about Floyd. Top of the pound for pound, famous, and financially at the top. So that's what becomes the role model. Canelo took risks. Canelo lost a couple fights, and it hasn't hurt him. So now these guys are saying, hey, if you could do it, then I can do it. I think fans will appreciate when fighters take these opportunities. And look, boxing's about opportunities. What were we supposed to do? Oh, we're not going to take Tank. If you want to be great, you got to dare to be great. You got to put in the work. He believes he can beat him. They know each other. I think Tank, just seeing a little bit of the promos, he's working his ass off. He's training really, really good and hard because he knows what he has in front of him. So at the end of the day, what I can guarantee the fans is they're going to see a real fight. This is going to be a real fight because, trust me, Lamont's coming to win. And that's what's going to make a good fight because the other one, Tank, is not going to say, okay, here's my title. I think more so because of, Barrera and Morales. Why did they give such great fights? Because either one could lose to somebody else, but I can't lose to you. We're from the same country. I got to be the best, at least in Mexico. And here with the DMV, I mean, it's going to be very similar in the DMV. I mean, I can't lose to you. Oh, yeah, wait, watch. I can't lose to you. So I think that lifts it up to another level of course, there's pride, but it just takes it up another notch.
You mentioned in the interview you did with Abraham Gonzalez, I believe the show's called the Boxing Rush Hour Show. Shout out to them. That the offers because Lamont was already considering about fighting, I believe, a Russian fighter who was next in line. So there was consideration for that, probably some potential plans for that. And then Tank's team I believe you said Luis de Cuba's approached you guys and say, hey, there's an opportunity here. Are you guys interested? You had mentioned in that interview with Abe that the offers were very similar. Is that, because fans, they're interested in the business side. Every sport has a business side, and it does get a lot of traction with fans. It's kind of like a peek behind the curtain to them. But were they really that similar? Because Tank is, he's a star. Were they really that similar?
Very similar. Very similar. And the fans need to know that, yes, Tank's the star, and he gets the bigger part. He gets the bigger piece of the pie. And rightfully so, until somebody comes and beats him. And sometimes you can beat him and not. How many times somebody come in and beat Oscar? That didn't make him the next Oscar. Even Manny, as great as he was, it was still Oscar. Obviously, after Manny went on to not only Oscar, came Miguel Cotto and Ricky Hatton and this and that, then obviously he started getting to that part. But not sometimes when you, not necessarily by beating the man do you become the man. So money-wise, it was very similar. But here's the difference. And this is what makes him, and you got to sit back and say, okay, he goes on and fights Albert. He's the interim world champion. I'm sorry, I forget his last name right now.
I think it's like Badagaziev or something like that. Something like that, yeah.
Very, very little professional fights. I believe it's like 10 or 11 professional fights. But people don't know he's been like an Olympian twice, Olympics twice, medalist. So the guy can fight. And remember, most of the time they have like 300 amateur fights. If we go to Russia, probably very few people see it, unless now on the internet or no major television out here is going to watch it or show it. And if we beat him, we come unknown that, oh yeah, who did he beat? And if you lose to him, you lose your title. And who was, so it's not really a fulfilling, yeah, you got paid. But now he's fighting Tank. And the beauty is, it's a mismatch. He shouldn't be fighting Tank. Well, let's talk next Sunday on the 2nd. And then people are going to know who Lamont Roach is. Regardless of the outcome, people are going to know this is a real fighter. And he's going to receive what he deserves. He's going to receive a lot of the praises and realize. And guess what? Still the world champion. If that fight with Albert has to happen again, then we'll revisit it. But right now, the monies were the same. In fact, there was probably even possibly more going to Russia. But you can't compare top pound for pound, one of the best fighters in boxing today. So that also to motivate oneself with the fighter that's stepping in the ring, you need that. Okay, I know who he is. Plus, there's a history. They fight twice in the amateurs. It's payback. As James Brown would say, it's the payback.
Absolutely. And I'm assuming you're going to be there in person for the fight, right?
I will be there, definitely, absolutely. I will be there, God willing, on Tuesday. I head out to New York with all the heavy artillery of coats and scarves and beanies and gloves because I know it's very cold out there. But I'm very excited. I'm very happy. He deserves it. And at the end of the day, I know he's coming to win, and it's going to be a hell of a fight. I know Tank is coming to keep what's his, but Lamont's coming to take it away.
Before we finish up here, Robert, I wanted to get your take on something that's been it's been talked about, and then the New York Times reported it earlier this year about the potential of a boxing league. So kind of like UFC, under one banner. Just because you're still involved in the sport, obviously heavily. What's your take on the potential of that?
I think it's good. I think it's good. I know the WBC is already talking about something like a tournament. look, we've seen something recently, as maybe the last 2-3 years with the league, LA against New York, and it's a 1 minute comeback league, something like that. But I don't like the 1 minute, especially for a fighter who's well into his career, who's really a 10-round fighter to fight 1 minute. I mean, for the fan, it's exciting because, this is quick. Next fight. But for the fighter, it's like, I like the art. Look, I went to a bare knuckle last year in Miami. I was invited. Sure, go support, go show love. And I remember my friend, the matchmaker, Mel, tells me, "Hey, man, you're going to get a good taste today, and you're never going to come back to boxing. You're going to stay here as a fan." And I could appreciate. I watched it. I'm old school. I probably, in the collection of all the fights, I've never seen more blood. I mean, they were bleeding everywhere, and there was so more blood. I'm like, damn, these guys are. And props to them. But I'm old school because I like watching the art. I like watching a knockout. I like watching a big, blood. But I like watching the setup. When I see a fighter start making his opponent do things because he's leading him on to make him, whether it's give himself a hope to open up or I'm setting up a trap. I love that. Feints. Why are you fainting? Why do you do that? Because next time you think I'm going to faint, I'm not going to faint, and I'm going to come. So I love seeing those steps before they're happening, where on this other side, it was more of a street fight. And they get tired real quick because the ring's smaller and there's no time to, it's very different. And I guess in that sense, I'm old school, but it's just the art of the boxing. Not that I only want to see, a good example, Bivol and Beterbiev. On one side, you have a guy that's a beast knocking everybody out. On the other side, you have consider a technician. The first fight was great. It was very close. I thought Bivol edged it. They gave it to Beterbiev. Fine. I have no problem. There wasn't like, what a bad decision. No. I think, it's if I think one guy won by one round, that's easily could be one guy, the other guy in the other round because we see it different. I think this next one tomorrow, it's going to be just as close. I think, again, I've said it, if they fight 10 times, it's going to be 10 very close fights because they are that good. Their IQ is that good. It's that high. I just think if anybody can adjust a little bit more and do, I think he's going to take more risks because he didn't like the fact that he lost, and that's better. That's Bivol. And I think this time he'll win. It won't be controversial. And then we're going to be like, okay, Turkey, give us the third because these guys are just giving us so much, right? Back after back, back to back to back. But going back on the tournament, on the league, I think we've been hearing about that for a while now. I think a couple promoters started it. It's difficult. It just has to be structured. I think a tournament is easier than a league. What consists of it, we got to see. But as long as it's more opportunities, especially for those fighters that we might not see outside if there's not a league, then that's great. Because we're going to see the ones that we're seeing today, the top tier. But if that's now a new tier that can get in and make their money and make their legacy and get known to the world, then, hey, more the better.
Absolutely. Well, Robert, I definitely appreciate your time today. I know your schedule got a little tight earlier, but at least we made it work, so I definitely appreciate that. Before we sign off here, go ahead and plug. I mean, if you want to do like an advertisement for Sheer Sports for any fighters that might be listening right now to kind of say like, hey, maybe I should check them out. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I will say this. I remembered while we were talking, one young man that came up also from the Velasco and went on to become a world champion, and that's Joshua Franco. He started with Golden Boy at the Velasco. So shout out to to Joshua, and his brother's doing amazing. Bam, big fan.
Yeah, his brother's insane. Yeah.
Oh my God, this kid!
He's a killer, man.
when he is, and he he pivots, and I mean, he just has it all. And I saw a little clip the other day when he beat the Thai champion, and it's like he smells blood, and there's probably not a better finisher than he is. Once he smells blood, once he sees you hurt, I saw a combination that he did on him. It was like 10, 15 punches where he just, stopped the fight. But yes, thank you for the opportunity. I had a great time. Thank you, Danny, for always. Sheer Sports, we have a young lady that is a mandatory right now for the world title at super middleweight, and that's from San Francisco, Raquel Miller, locally from LA, former interim world champion, Adelaida La Cobra Ruiz. If anybody, please trust me when I say she can fight, but she has a mean, I mean, this is almost like a movie type story that they really have to get behind her and understand that she's a mother of 3, left boxing, raises 3 children, goes back to boxing almost 10 years later and captures a world title. I mean,
that's insane. Yeah.
That's crazy. And right now, there's a world title fight that's about to be ordered. She will fight the winner, and I have no doubt she'll recuperate that title. She's that good, and she's that dedicated. I'm also working with Kenya Enriquez from Tijuana. She's a mandatory to Gabriela Fundora, who's one of the top. I mean, she has all the belts. And Jessica Neri Plata from Mexico City. She had the WBC and the WBA title. She's going back after both of them. So I'm just excited. Look, if I can give them a little bit of what I've learned through the years and advice, then that's great. I have a young kid from Northern California. People are going to hear about him. He's very young. He's from not San Francisco, outside San Francisco, and his name is Abraham Lozano. He's 3-0, 3 knockouts, all in the first round. But forget about the record. The discipline he has and the desire he has to be somebody. That's where it's fulfilling to say, look, anything I could do for you, and that's where I'm excited, because you're seeing that next generation of tomorrows up close. Signed 2 young men out of Texas, 2 brothers, the Bocanegra brothers, Ray and Xavier, off to a great start. They're training with Eddie Reynoso in San Diego. And just look, I always said that, and I learned this early on in my years at Golden Boy, it's discipline beats talent. There's so many talented that don't make it because of the lack of discipline. And if anybody wants to see what discipline is, just watch Bernard Hopkins' career. That's total discipline. And look how far it took him. When people used to say, oh, he must be doing something illegal. No, he was the only one doing something legal, properly, but taking care of his body, nourishing it, feeding it properly, and training properly. But with that said, thank you so much for the opportunity, and it's always a pleasure, my man.
We appreciate it, man. And you can follow Robert Diaz on social media at Michelada Time, and you can follow us on social media as well at The Last Round 12. Once again, for our guest of the week and president of Sheer Sports, Robert Diaz, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.